So if you watch the regular shallow news media, which is kind of unavoidable as it's on every news feed, the news story this week was that the Supreme Court ruled that a president is not protected from having their tax returns examined while in office by the state of New York. Just an aside, if you are a businessman and considering moving to the state of New York, watch out. If you are not a member of the Democratic Party, the district attorney's office in New York will do everything they can to destroy you and your family. President Trump is a perfect example of why not to do business in a state run by Democrats. They will destroy you and do everything they can to ruin the lives of anyone that works for you. But Nancy Pelosi says that this Supreme Court ruling is bad news for President Trump. But someone asked her this week, when does she plan to release her taxes? And she just said, when and if I decide to run for president, I will most certainly release my tax returns. Now, you might think that President Trump is a special case for releasing his tax returns because, according to the current news media, he's the most evil man who ever lived. But that's not a historical context. If you go back to the 2012 election, Nancy Pelosi, once again, says she will not release her own tax returns, and she's demanding that the Republican candidate of 2012 release his tax returns, meaning Mitt Romney, who ironically is in the news here criticizing President Trump. Not a very grateful man, apparently. Now, I'd like to go back to the question of whether Donald Trump has something to hide in his IRS tax returns and ask you a basic question of logic. Donald Trump has been filing his own taxes since the age of 19. From being a millionaire to a billionaire, everything in his taxes have had to be correct, or else the Internal Revenue Service would slap him with massive penalties, seizure of property, and lengthy prison time. We all know this. This happens to the rich and famous alike. So, consider for a moment the contention of the Democratic Party. Let's ignore the fact that they did this same routine with Mitt Romney in 2012. Let's just pretend, for argument's sake, that Donald Trump is a special case. He's a mad dictator, and he has a river of criminal corruption and sneaky deals hidden on his tax return. Let's just assume that premise is true, because every news outlet and every reporter who's criticized Trump agrees with that premise. How many friends does Donald Trump have at the Internal Revenue Service? How many IRS agents consider him their personal friend? The contention, when you think about it, is ridiculous. Donald Trump, whether as a businessman or president, doesn't have any friends at the IRS. He doesn't have anyone who looks at his tax returns and says, gee, Trump has so many criminal illegal activities on his tax returns, but since I'm his personal friend at the IRS, I'm going to let all that slide year after year from the age of 19 to Trump's present age in his 70s. The idea that the Internal Revenue Service would protect Donald Trump and cover up for him if he had any criminal wrongdoing in his tax returns is ridiculous. So why does the New York State Attorney's Office want to look at his tax returns? It's simple harassment, because he was a Republican. He had businesses in the state of New York. He won the presidency, and the state of New York has come after him. It would be like if President Obama, once he took office, suddenly found himself harassed by the city of Chicago with endless prosecutors looking into his past finances, trying to destroy him, which might actually net some results in the President Obama's case. So, when you see Nancy Pelosi calling for the president to release his tax returns, notice that you will not see, most likely, this follow-up question, where she's asked by reporters if she would release her own tax returns. You will not see this question or this response from Nancy Pelosi on any of the network newscasts, the regular newspapers, or cable news outlets. This is like a secret news story. It doesn't fit the agenda, it doesn't push a media narrative, and therefore it doesn't exist. But I thought I would point it out to you here, because if you follow any news at all this week, you will have seen the news story that President Trump has lost a major legal battle in keeping his tax returns released. And there's some actual contention from legal experts that the Supreme Court ruling benefits President Trump. But the fact that he even has to defend himself in court over this proves that the Democratic Party simply wanted to deny President Trump the effective use of his time during his first term of office. This was an illegal attack by the Democratic Party against the winner of the 2016 presidential election. Donald Trump won the 2016 presidential election fair and square, and the Democratic Party, the Democratic news media, and all of their front groups have labored for the past 4 years to deny him the ability to govern, as is his legal right in winning the 2016 election. If any Democrat wins office after this, I certainly hope that the Republican Party and their attorney generals and governors do everything they can to deny the next Democrat president a single free day in office, because they did it to Trump, and this set the standard. So every Democrat president should be denied the ability to effectively govern in exactly the same manner, and it comes down to this harassment over his tax returns. Thank you.